This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Bear Boat Alaska. Up your DIY hunting game with one of their 37-foot adventure yachts. You and 5 of your friends can hunt, fish, set crab pots, shrimp pots, and take DIY to the next level. Bear Boat Alaska is locally owned by a Ketchikan resident who lives here year-round. Call Larry at 907-617-4542 or go to bearboatalaska.com. That's B-A-R-E boatalaska.com and tell Larry you heard about it on this podcast. All right, Kyle Wilkinson, welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, Jeff.
So you are a co-host of the Young Guides podcast, and it's kind of the off season now for fishing a little bit here in Alaska. So what are you filling the hours with?
Right now, I am working at Heather's Choice. That's
Nice.
kind of my winter gig. Yeah, I work in the production kitchen there. I'm a lead. I had that job. I started working there in October of 21, after the guide season, and I worked there until kind of like the middle to end of May. Honestly, depending on when the rivers thaw and when runoff is over and when guide season can start. When I first applied there, that was the first thing I talked to. It was like, hey, I want to work here. I want to be a part of Heather's Choice, but I do want to go and guide in the guide season in the summertime. And they were totally cool with that. And
Nice.
they've kept up with that and have allowed me to continue to do that every year. So came back this last October, and I'll work until May and then be done. So
Nice. Yeah, working for a business that accommodates lifestyle has got to be huge. It's amazing to see what some people have to endure when it comes to what their job is, because they're just not at all flexible. There's one of the kids who was helping build the house this summer had another job, and the guy threatened to never hire him again if he came back to work on the house. So they took a little break on the house while the subcontractors were in there, and so he had been working from April until the end of May building my house with my builder, and then took the summer off to work for this company. And then it was time, once the subcontractors were out, my builder needed him back again, but couldn't get him because the guy threatened to never hire him again. It's like, man, that's
wow.
All right. He took a break from building the house to work here, and then you're just not going to be accommodating. So that's too bad. But yeah, Heather's Choice seems like a great company, great product, and that's actually not very surprising knowing that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's that company culture there is really awesome.
Yeah. So filling those hours, you don't have the same recreation opportunities. Are you like me in that it's gear season and it's look at fly fishing film season?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely like going over gear lists, what worked last year, what didn't work last year. And then watching hunting and fishing films and getting super stoked for the upcoming season.
Yeah. What's some of the I don't know. I watch a lot of hunting films to kind of close out the year because everybody has a lot of times there's like a at least 6-month delay, if not a year delay of the previous season. So you watch a whole bunch of those, and then you kind of get into the fly fishing stuff, and there's such a difference in the films. Do you have a preference? I know, or is there like a certain mood? Sometimes I want like a gritty hunt type, not like Brian Call gritty, but just a rugged hunt type film. And other times a fly fishing film more suits the mood. Or what's kind of the difference between a fly fishing film and a hunting film for you?
I was thinking about that as a lot of times when I'm working out, I'm looking up these films or I'm doing stuff around the house, tying flies or whatever. And when I'm looking for a hunting film, I kind of like those style of videos that are like Billy Moles, like the Modern Day Mountain Man, or I think that's what his channel is called. But his videos are very authentic. He's not like he doesn't have a film crew. It's just him, and a lot of time it's him guiding clients, and they're well edited, but they're not like super overly polished, right? And he's not promoting a brand or a company or He's just telling the story how it happens, and that's the kind of hunting films I really like.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah,
when it comes,
it's
go
funny.
for it.
I'd never heard of this guy. There's so much content out there on YouTube. It's impossible to have a pulse on all of it. And so, I had just went to the YouTube channel. Now I'm just kind of checking it out. I'm like, man, how did the algorithm not feed me this?
Yeah, yeah, it's his videos are super cool. I would definitely recommend checking those out. But when it comes to fly fishing, I don't know. It is different. I kind of want those videos that are more like upbeat. Like you look at, let's say, like the IF or International Fly Fishing Film Festival, or the F3T Fly Fishing Film Tour,
Hmm.
and like those their stoke reels they make every year, where it's just like super upbeat music, and it's these people casting like super far and like catching these big toothy fish all around the world. Like that's what really gets me stoked.
Hmm.
So I got to get that stoke for that fly fishing versus the hunting is more kind of like that unpolished, kind of like laid back, just telling the story as it is.
Yeah, there's kind of a. I go back and forth. Some of those years, those fly fishing films on the tour, they're kind of depressing because they're all about how there's no steelhead left here, or there's no, the tarpon are vanishing here, or I mean, it's just, it could be really, really sad. So you get some awesome clips and you're excited for the first 5, 10 minutes of it. And then it's like, it becomes this really dark view of the future. And it's something that we have to be aware of.
Mhm.
It's, it's very important in hunting too, but just that involvement, it seems like there's a different angle with that. Whereas a lot of the hunting films end with, the antlers, the trophy, the excitement, and you can film that in a different way. A lot of the storytelling and some of the fly fishing stuff is really good, really insightful, and pretty fun to watch. Like, so I have some memories of some old films that were also on DVD. I can't remember who did them, but gosh, who were those guys? The Trout Bum Diaries. That's who it was. They did a
Yeah.
Steelhead one in Canada. I just thought about how many hours it would take to film because you're not going to catch a fish on every cast, and so
Exactly.
how many empty casts they have there. Whereas in a hunt, as soon as you know it's going to go down, you just click record and you're good to go. It's not you're not shooting a caribou on the 500th shot or something like that. So it's
Yep.
really different there. But those fly fishing films about steelhead just take on a whole different feeling. Is there a specific species that you really enjoy watching films about?
Oh, I definitely the um well there's two types. One type is films about places that I've been to or that I know. So I like to kind of scour YouTube and other platforms and look for videos like in South Central Alaska. That way I can like watch the video. I'm like, oh, I've been there. I noticed, I know where that cliff is. I noticed that landmark.
Hmm.
That's cool. That person has been there too. There's been some I've actually watched and I can see my truck. Like they're driving to the parking lot. Oh, there's my truck in the parking lot. That was super recent. Um, and then I like the other ones that are like destination trips. So watching, people catch GTs,
Hmm.
people catching tarpon. One of like my first ever like fly fishing bucket list trip, and I watched Jeremy Wade on River Monsters catch a tarpon in like a really tiny creek in like a little like I think he was in just like a little float tube, right, kicking around. And that was like those are the kind of things that I like to watch, are those destination trips, catching species that are hard to get to, and that are just aren't your everyday thing to catch.
Yeah. Whenever I see a film that happens to be about steelhead in Southeast Alaska, 'cause that tends to be what it is. If you're down here fishing for king salmon out in the ocean, it's, you know, tons of fish kind of all over the place out in the water. It's impossible to know exactly where they're going to be because some days you're out fishing this rock and then the next day they're not there because you're out in the ocean. It's the variables are changed drastically. But when it comes to
Mhm.
steelhead, yeah, I'm always hopeful that they're not on a river that I recognize just because it's such a, it's one, everything is one video or one article away from being ruined. Some of the
Yeah.
stuff is pretty rugged, but you can't begrudge someone making that happen because I would like to. I'd be that exact person somewhere else. Yeah, I can't say, oh, I hate tourists coming up here and ruin the steelhead, or my river is taken up by a whole bunch of people when I want to be that exact person catching GTs or tarpon or stuff like that.
Hmm. No, I totally agree. And there is a kind of my thoughts are like yes, it does kind of it sucks sometimes to see that like, oh, maybe that is my secret spot. Or maybe it's someplace that isn't as well known and that it is kind of a bummer to see those people there. But um I think a big thing, as long as you're not like hot spotting that, right? You're
Mm.
not saying exactly where you're at. That is gonna keep some people out of there. And I was we actually just recently talked to somebody on our podcast, Fly Fish Dan. He has a YouTube channel. He's based out of Washington, and we he was kind of talking about hot spotting. We were asking him kind of what he does to limit that, and he was like, as long as you're not again saying the name of where you're at, and you're careful about having certain landmarks in the background. If it's just a hill with a field in the background, the only people that are really going to know where that's at are the people that have been there.
Hmm.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference. A lot of locals will get upset about, why are you on this river? Like, I didn't say where this river was. Or I didn't say anything about, you just recognize it because of where you're at, but no one else at home is going to be like, oh, sweet, I'm just going to look at that spruce, and that spruce tells me it's right here. I mean, it's a forest and it's a river. Who knows? But yeah, some of those landmarks can be a little bit more, I guess, open the door of access to more local type people or people who are kind of around. And maybe if they're in the Ketchikan area, the Sitka area, they kind of know what that mountain is and so they can figure some things out. But yeah, I think that ethic applies for a lot of people. And I think they're really good about making the trip of a lifetime happen. But knowing that they're hunting or fishing in someone else's backyard and kind of taking that, dialing it down a little bit, and just kind of appreciating the experience and appreciating the opportunity rather than, everybody can do this too. Come to this place and do this DIY, or you go out with a guide, you learn all the stuff, and then you undermine everything by providing them every single small little detail about doing it yourself because you learned this from the guide. So I think it's that ethic is cool to see in some of those films.
Yeah, for sure.
What's your feeling on slams? I was just watching a film earlier today about slams, and they were up in Alaska, and of course you had some of the cheesy Alaskan shots, but they wanted to catch seven species of fish while they were up there. Have you gotten caught up in slams or anything like that?
Not that I can think of. Yeah, I guess I've never really pursued it. Really, the only one that I've ever really been interested in is a cutthroat slam they have down in the lower 48.
Hmm.
I can't remember if it spans several states in the western part of the country or if it's like in one state, but I know that in areas that have close geographical like populations of different cutthroat trout, I think that'd be really cool to do. But other than that, I haven't really been interested in pursuing any slams. No.
Yeah, I did a slam in the Sierra Nevada of California. You get a brook trout, rainbow, um, brown, and golden all on the same day, and it was kind of
Nice.
a cool little goal. And then
Yeah.
once we got it, the hardest one actually was the brown trout because we went to a spot that had goldens, and you talk about hush hush, like a golden spot is a very very. I get there are a couple of lakes where they stock them, but if you
Hmm.
get a golden trout in the Sierra Nevada on the fly, like you keep that stuff very, very close to your waders there. So that was the first one we went after. Got that, and then we had to drive to a different river system to get the other ones. But you're done, and you think, oh, that was awesome. And you think, oh, no one cares really. It was just kind of more about the experience and getting all those fish, specifically the golden trout. So the only thing that really sticks out in my memory is just the that golden trout and how cool that was. And you're just laying on this rock and you're just kind of barely looking over this rock to see where it might be feeding, and then you're laying out this cast and half of the cast has to land on rock and just the last little bit of tippet gently on shore because during the summer those little ponds and the little creeks are mostly dried up, and so it's really delicate habitat, and just got to be a perfect cast. And if you splash the water, the thing's not gonna bite. So cool, and it's just for a 8-inch fish, but that
Yeah.
it's so awesome. So when I think of my slam career, I technically got those in a day, but it really doesn't matter. That the memory of that golden trout's the number one.
100%. That sounds pretty cool. And I guess, listening to that and thinking back too is like there is one that interests me, and that is the 25 on the fly. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Mm-mm.
I think it's what it's called. Um, I want to say it's kind of like a national thing, especially in the lower 48. But the Red's Fly Shop in Washington, I believe, hosts it once a year. And it's trying to catch as many species as you can in like 2 days. And there's some people that I know, other guides that I've worked with, that participate in that, and then try to catch as many species on a fly rod as they can, in those 2 days. And you're competing for like fly rods or other certain prizes, but it's like catching a perch, a bass, a rainbow trout, a cutthroat trout, carp, a random species like a catfish, and just trying to catch them all. Because in places like Central Washington, you can catch all those things in a day or sometimes just within an hour.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the good part of those slams is it can become just the surefire way to miss the point, but
Hmm.
it's also provides a roadmap to cool opportunities and maybe something that you might not know about. And then you can say, okay, if I want a tarpon or I want this, these are some cool game fish that I might enjoy. These are some experiences that might be really awesome. And so if you treat it like that, and I think a lot of people do, if just because you chase a slam of hunting or fishing doesn't mean that you've missed the point or that you're, whatever. But it is nice to have that guide and have these opportunities revealed to you, and figuring it out. It's a cool thing. Like catching a carp, right? You hear about people catching carp and like, this carp's a trash fish from those nuclear looking ponds on a golf course. But if you get them out
Hmm.
in kind of a reservoir or something like that, and you're like, oh, well, I'll catch a carp. This is a cool new experience. And you do, and you think, I probably wouldn't want to chase this for the rest of my life, but I'm glad I had that opportunity. Glad I had that experience. It's a cool, challenging fish.
Yeah. And I think it's the challenging aspect of it too, right? Like you knew that probably finding that, or at least going into your slam, that going into it, that the golden might be one of the toughest. So that was the first thing you went for. I kind of like that, like prioritizing. All right, what is something that I know I can catch really easily, right? Like I could back home, I could go to the lake and I knew I could catch a sunfish, or I could go catch a largemouth right in the pond. I knew I could go to the river and catch a trout, but it's those things are like, okay, I need to catch a tiger muskie. what do I like? That's gonna be the hardest thing. So I'm gonna go do that first, so I can spend most of my time doing that. Or I need to go catch a carp, and I'll go catch a carp first because I knew that would be the hardest. And being able to prioritize that and know that um, something's going to be tougher than the other one and going after that, and then you know having all those different techniques, expanding your knowledge on fishing, like the way you're going to fish for a tiger muskie, throwing a big giant streamer at structure, looking around weed beds is going to be different than going to the river and fishing a stonefly nymph under an indicator trying to catch a trout. So
Hmm.
just having that knowledge, I found has helped me as I've moved from Washington to Alaska. I maybe didn't fish for, let's say, silvers back home in Washington as much on the fly rod, but I'm able to take some of those experiences and techniques, throwing streamers for bass, and bring those up here. And it's very similar to throwing streamers for salmon.
Hmm. Yeah, that was one of the things that when I got into fly fishing, just how it's very, very different, but there are some universal principles. No matter where you're fishing, there are certain things to keep in mind. Same thing with hunting, and so it's nice to have once you have that, it's like a transferable skill. You have this foundational knowledge that can be applied in different areas. Um, what would you consider your like home fish or like your number one fish? I would say that growing up spin casting for silvers, like that was just, I'd have my number five blue fox, and that was all I would use. My brother would use a Meps, of course, because brothers can't get along. And I would just throw those all the time and catch silvers, and that was kind of the fish of me growing up. And then once I started fly fishing, it became just the rainbow trout, and it didn't really matter where it was. I just wanted to catch rainbows and new water, and like the brown trout a lot too. But as far as my fish, it would be a silver and then rainbow on the fly. Do you have like a fish that stands out as the kind of your home fish?
Yeah, I mean, and similar, it's kind of changed for me growing up. It was like smallmouth bass, and I love to catch smallmouth on spinning gear, in a lot of the lakes and reservoirs, on the Columbia River and other places in Central Washington. That's what I did. That's what I like to do. But then as I started getting more into fly fishing, it was similar. It was the trout. We had rainbows and cutthroat back home. Um, they were easy to access. That was when I started guiding back home. That was what I mainly guided for, was rainbows. And then coming up here to Alaska, it's the same thing. That's our target species. I mean, we do target silvers and chums, pinks, kings. We do target grayling sometimes, but it always seems that everything kind of revolves around rainbows.
Hmm. Do you do you wonder about if you specialize in one fish, what you might be kind of neglecting? Because in the hunting realm, it's kind of like that too. Like you could become an expert hunting black-tailed deer in Southeast Alaska. The more you hunt that, the better you are at hunting that. But then you might be neglecting other opportunities. I went up to hunt the Hall Road and got a caribou with my bow, which was so much fun, so great. It was such a great experience. But one of my favorite things about hunting is the opener for a Sitka black-tailed deer. So being up on a mountain for that opener. So my favorite memory of hunting is that alpine opener. So choosing caribou over that, obviously, it was a great decision, such an awesome experience. But it is, you can't do both at the same time. You can't hunt for two things at the same time. You can't hunt for or fish at the same time. Well, I guess you kind of can.
Yeah.
But are there certain opportunities that you think may have been, or you have to make those happen at some point because you are worried that you might not ever get back to them? Like the more that you fish Alaska, you love it, but the more time you're spending in Alaska, you're neglecting some other potential species somewhere else that you might have to say no to Alaska once so you can go catch something somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. I think that, focusing up here, granted, coming up here now, I've only been here for almost 2 years now. So I'm still trying to figure things out, and it's still fairly new to me. But I am looking at other places too. Like, hey, as much as I would love to be here, um, sometimes fishing in the fall, right? Fishing fall rainbows, and silvers. There are other places that I'd like to go to. Maybe between the guide season and going back to Heather's Choice, like talking to Keaton and going down to places like Pyramid Lake and catching
Mm,
Lahontan cutthroats.
yeah.
Um, so I definitely think that that does limit it. And sometimes not necessarily species, but technique, right? Like I'm so focused a lot of times on fly fishing that I do notice that I'm limiting myself, like say going down and fishing Ship Creek in Anchorage, right? It's not glamorous. It's not like going flying in somewhere or even wading up some Parks Highway streams, but it's a different type of
Hmm.
fishing that I think that I limit myself by not going and doing that and having that experience because that's more like your camaraderie. You might be, plunking eggs for kings there and you can hear trains and cars and stuff go in the
Yeah.
background, but I think that would be kind of a cool experience that I'm limiting myself from doing or even going down to Seward. I want to go down to Seward and snag sockeyes
Hmm.
next this June. I think that'd be super cool experience.
Yeah, there was a terminal run on Prince of Wales Island for cohos, and it was fun to go up there and snag. And then the
Mm-hmm.
novelty kind of wore off a little bit. I think it'd be really
Mm-hmm.
nice to just go back to regular fishing in the rivers, and go kind of the traditional method. When I was down in California, we thought about going to Pyramid Lake,
Mm-hmm.
but there's something about like having to fish on a ladder. It's somewhat intriguing, but at the same time, I don't know. You look at those trout though, and you think, "Gosh, that thing is awesome. It'd be so great to have that experience and catch that thing." But the lake looks pretty ugly.
Mm-hmm.
The standing on top of the ladders just seems like, but I don't know. It's you can't stick your nose up at at everything because then you're going to miss out on something that could be really cool. But yeah, that one's really big, and the Ship Creek one too. We
Mm-hmm.
went and checked that out one day when we were up there last June, and just mud flat, kind of gross. And we checked out, was it, is there Anchor Creek? There's somewhere down on the Kenai Peninsula where they had a small run of kings that was actually open. And it
Mm-hmm.
was just not glamorous whatsoever. No beauty at all. But,
Yeah,
it's king salmon maybe on a fly rod. Like, how do you say no to that?
exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
Will's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just say about that whole thing. It's like, yeah, it's something that might not be as glamorous, or not something looking forward to, or it's not just your cup of tea. But I think that I'm again limiting myself by not doing those things. And if I don't like it, don't have to do it again. Like dip netting this year, I didn't think I'd like dip netting, but my wife really wanted to try it, and we did it, and we love it. So that's definitely something I'm going to go back and do. And if it hadn't been for her pushing me to do that, I probably would have
Mhm.
never tried it.
Yeah. There's part of us, my wife and I went to Kenai Peninsula last year, and it was just chaotic, but I kind of want to go back again. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just different. Those massive rainbows, and being able to float it maybe rather than kind of try to figure out and fish it from shore. There's always that you can't learn it all on one trip. You get some basic stuff. You maybe have a little bit of success, but there's always the fish that you didn't get. You catch a nice 18-inch rainbow trout, and you're excited for that because that's a beautiful fish. You catch a nice 18-inch Dolly Varden, beautiful fish, amazing. But you know what is also out there,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes you want to go back, even though the crowds were insane, even though all these other things were going on. You kind of want to go back, and I think, man, do I really want to spend time up there, spend all the money to go back up there and to fish for bigger rainbow trout, or do I want to stay down here and troll for king salmon, that I'm going to eat, and that's fun. So my buddies down here like, why would you do that? Why would you go up there catch one of these rainbows when you can catch kings down here? I think, well, it's just that experience thing, man. It doesn't always make sense.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. Um, yeah, and especially guiding too, it's like there are times where I think this kind of relates where I don't want to necessarily go out and fish after a trip, right? Or if on my days off because I've been doing that same thing. Um, but there is just something it's like, it's out there and you know that there's something drawing you back because you've maybe a spot from guiding or you've seen some big fish or what opportunity is out there, but it can be kind of limiting because maybe I'm burned out or maybe I don't want to spend the time to go back and do that after a day of work. But there's always something out there that's going to pull you back.
Yeah. Do you get I don't want to say frustrated, but if a client's trying to catch fish and they're either not listening or they're not capable, and does it just make you think, oh man, I'm coming back here because it's on right here if this person knew what they were doing? Or do you feel kind of bad because they can't make it happen? And then maybe how does that impact how you treat the situation? If you know you have a novice caster and there's this spot that's just going to be filled with some really, really nice fish, do you kind of underplay it so the person doesn't feel inept because, oh man, the guy had said there was like some massive fish here, but I just couldn't make it happen. I kept fouling up in the weeds or whatever. How does encountering a really, really good spot impact you as a guide?
So I approach that in a few ways. One, if I tell a client that something like there's a spot coming up that's going to be really good, they'll work it up in their minds a lot of times where they will mess up the cast, right? Like, all right, this is the spot. This is where we caught a 24-inch rainbow yesterday, and they'll work it up in their minds where they'll go to make a cast and they will tangle up, they will cast too early or too late, or they'll get snagged on a branch and they'll mess up the drift. So a lot of times I'll actually keep some of those places quiet. I won't even tell them. I'm like, all right, if you're just the next run's coming up, and I'll know that there's probably going to be a fish there. And if they don't know about it in their minds, if they're not overthinking it, they'll actually get a better drift, a better shot at the hole and catch the fish. When the pinks are in, right? Up where I'm at, we seem to have a pink year every year. Some years have more fish than others, but I know that we can catch fish, and I know where those pinks are going to be holding, and a lot of the slow little kind of back eddies and some of the sloughs and stuff. And so I know that when I have a novice angler, maybe we're not going to target trout that day, right? Because trout can sometimes be easy, sometimes they can be really hard. But I know that we can get a novice angler on a pink, just casting a big, chartreuse or pink fly out there. And there have been times, I remember one specific trip last year, I had it's like a kid. He was like probably in his mid-teens, and then he had his aunt with him. And that kid cannot catch a pink to save his life. I bet you it took that kid an hour and a half
Wow.
just coaching him through. Like he'd get it out there, but he just couldn't get the feel for what the bite looked like. And we were even watching these things eat, and he could see it eat and set the hook and then just keeping tension on the line. And they kept spitting the hook or they get off. And I think we finally got him like a couple pinks somewhere, like a couple hours into this like 4-hour trip. But it's learning to just be patient, and then learning new ways to communicate with people, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this kid had any previous experience fly fishing at all. And so having to come up with ways to get him to like, hey, you gotta keep tension on the rod, you gotta keep the line tight, or the fish is gonna get off. Or maybe walking them through. One big thing I've come kind of learned the last couple of years is like, all right, we hook the fish. I used to be like, all right, get that fish in, let's keep a tight line, and be kind of like all over the place, like really excited. I've kind of come to the point now where it's like everything just like stops. And a lot of times I'll be like, all right, hold on a second. Fish is going to be on there. All right, let's think about our hand, and I'll break down. All right, you're holding the rod like this. Let's go ahead and take the line out of your finger. All right, so we're there. Still got tension on the fish. Now we're going to take, a lot of times, they're holding the rod with like two hands. Like, all right, we're going to hold the rod with one hand, and we're going to take our left hand. We're going to grab the reel, and we're going to turn away from us. We always want to turn away from us and not backward or towards us, because then we're going to be giving that fish line. So I totally take the whole process and I break it down really simple, and I'm just going to go through it really calmly, and I'm going to tell them step by step what they need to do, what they need to think, and what they need to watch for. And I think that just comes with time and just being in that, like having that experience so much that I kind of learned how to break it down to somebody who has never done it before.
Yeah. I think the panicked response sometimes when you hook a big fish, if you've been stripping in, is to just cinch down that finger down to the cork, and then there's nothing if that fish goes. You're either going to get line burn or it's just going to pop out. So that calm sort of approach, and then enjoying that moment also is an important thing, because you just get like, this is what you wanted, like this whole thing. And if it just becomes about a rush to get the fish in, then the fish is gone. It's kind of a oh wait, what happened there? You know, it was just such a panicked I have to close the loop or whatever, rather than just, oh man, I got the fish. Here I am. I'm in Alaska. I'm got this nice rainbow. I can enjoy that. And I think it's if it becomes less about just the numbers of how big the fish is and how many you get, and if you can slow down in those moments, I think that's a really cool thing. I've found that with hunting too, where when I got or I get, I guess I shouldn't be total past tense on this. When I get too caught up in the result, I you get frustrated, and rather than look, man, where are we? This is beautiful opportunity. People pay so much money to do this. This is a trip of a lifetime, and I get to do this 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times a year. So just enjoy all of everything, and then if you get to make a shot, you get to make a shot, and even enjoy part of that too. It's going to take what it's going to take. You don't have to rush it. Coming off the mountain, all that stuff, being aware of all pieces of the experiences is a pretty cool thing to do. And I'm still learning. Sometimes get a little ahead of myself, but yeah, that's such I guess it's maturity, something like that.
Yeah, one thing that I really hate to see is, and it's especially with newer guides. I know hate's kind of a strong word, but it really is off-putting to me is when a guide gets on a client for making a mistake or losing a big fish, or I've seen some guides like yelling at their clients to coach, and I totally do not agree with that. I know that in some, it seems to be more, not hating on saltwater people or anything, but it tends to be more of a saltwater thing, right? Like the crusty captain or whatever. But even in don't fly fishing, some places that I've been worked at or I've had experience with, or can get on to clients, and I think that just kind of kills the vibe, kills the mood. It's going to make that client more stressed. They're going to feel bad about it if they do lose that fish. I've seen some clients like just totally just upset at their guide the rest of the day because that guide got onto them for really no reason. Like, it's not anybody's fault. We're out there, like you said, to enjoy the whole experience and not necessarily get caught up. Like, yeah, you might have lost like a 24-inch rainbow. That's a 2-foot long fish. That's really awesome. But, you got to play that fish. You presented that fly right or that bead right. You did everything right. The only thing we didn't get to do was touch that fish, right? Like, everything else was perfect about it. And you don't have to have a picture with that fish, right? Like, that you did everything right to that point.
Yeah. I think some of the validation comes with if you are the guide who gets fish on those big fish, you start to think ahead a little bit. But I haven't had a whole bunch of guides, but the guides that I've had have been like good basketball coaches or teachers where like there's standards. Like you stay in focus because you want to have a good experience. If it's just it doesn't matter, nothing matters, you catch 0 fish, like what did I pay for? Like I'm trying to get you knowledge, so hold me accountable, tell me what I have to do, but also make it kind of a good experience, and so it's a lot more fun. Oh, what do you got for a little closer here? I got to get back down and paint some more baseboard today, but where can people find you? What do you got for a closer?
Yeah, so Keaton and I have just been working on the podcast a lot, trying to create more content. We definitely we didn't stay as consistent last year, especially during the guide season, as we wanted to be. So we're just trying to create as much content now as we can, and then have stuff to publish during the guide season when we're not gonna be available to record with each other and edit and publish podcasts. So yeah, we're just trying to create as much content as we can there. And my goal this year personally is to have a piece of mind published somewhere once a week.
Nice.
Whether that be on the podcast website, or other partners that we have on their website, or in print somewhere. So
awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm going to be spending the next few months.
What type of stuff you want to write?
A lot of blogs, like how to, one of the ones I just sent to Alaska Rodco, one of our partners today, was on how to read water from my perspective, especially like mid-river drop-offs and how I fish those, how I locate those in the river and what I look for. So how-to articles. I'm going to be doing some gear breakdowns, planning food for long trips. Like my moose hunt last year was supposed to be a 9-day trip turned into or an 8-day trip turned into an 11-day trip for me, 15 for the guy I was with. So how you plan for food and how you plan for, sometimes things that take a little bit longer than you anticipate.
Yeah. Awesome. Looking forward to that. Thanks again for being on here. Appreciate it. And yeah, we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, sounds good. Appreciate it, Jeff.
See ya.